All right, we are live. Welcome to Hump Day Hangouts, episode 227. I've got this beautiful blue shirt on. Oh, look at that. It's got the logo on there. I didn't notice until just now. Anyways, welcome to Hump Day Hangouts. We got some really good announcements as well as diving into the questions. And thank you, first of all, for watching. But first, we're going to take a minute, say hello to the guys, and then we'll dive into it. Chris, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, doing good. Super excited to be here. And even more excited that Bradley will finally reveal his secret SEO loophole for 2019 at the end of this webinar.
I am?
Wow. Thank you, Bradley. That's very nice of you.
Wow, this is news to me. I better come up with something.
Oh, that's good. You got 59 minutes. All right, the clock's ticking. Hernan, how you doing, man? Are you on live on Facebook right now? What's going on?
No, I'm not. I was trying to upload a story to Instagram, but that didn't work. So if you guys are doing any Facebook ads, raise your hands. And if you are, everything is down. So yeah, I'm gonna just go hide somewhere because everything is down. I don't know, the end is here or something.
It's working here, man.
Yeah, but other than that, good. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for what's coming up. B3 again was a big success. So I really appreciate all of you guys that showed some support for the Semantic Mastery crew. So
outstanding. Well, Marco, how you doing, man?
I got an SEO secret.
Yeah, what is it?
It has never been easier to rank and make money online than it is right now. Google has so many people convinced that it's so difficult that people just simply won't put in the work to do the SEO correctly. And by correctly, I don't mean, asshat SEO doesn't work for me. I manipulate as much as I can, but that's what they don't want you to do because they know it works. So that's your secret. Whatever Google's telling you not to do, it's for a reason. And it usually works really well when you can get around all of the barriers that they put up. But guys and ladies, it has never been any easier. Listen to me. And I've been at this more than 15 years now. It has never been easier to make money online, and it has never been easier to rank online. Remember that. I said it.
SEO is dead.
Trademarked. Marco 2019 TM copyright. Awesome. Bradley, how you doing, man?
Good. Happy to be here.
Outstanding. Well, I like your shirt. You're looking good. I don't know.
Like
There's something about it. Yeah.
It's a little worn because I wear it often, so it's and it looks like it's fading a bit, but whatever.
I keep this in like a cryogenic chamber, like shrouded, and it's got a little fog around it. No. Well, hey everybody, wanted to say again, thanks for checking out Hump Day Hangouts. If you're new and watching us, thanks. And we're normally not quite this weird, although kind of borderline. And we appreciate you watching. If you're catching the replay, that's cool too. We love it. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're watching these clips at. And if you're wondering where to get started with Semantic Mastery, this is the place to be. You can come to semanticmastery.com/HD questions every week. If you're early or late because you've got a meeting, you got a client call, or you're at work, whatever it is, you can ask your questions on the page and we answer them in the order they came in. So you can always check out the replay as well. But we love having people live. Occasionally there's good reasons to be here, some fun stuff, some giveaways, stuff like that. And then after that, definitely check out the battle plan. We just released version 3. Bradley, you shaking your head? Should people not get the battle plan?
No, I'm just reading one of these questions. Sorry.
I saw that. I was like, hey, what the hell, man? Come on. No, so grab the battle plan, go to battleplan.semanticmastery.com and get started there and make Bradley go like this instead of like that. So that'll happen if you get the battle plan, and we want to make Bradley happy, so do it. After that, join the mastermind if you're looking for a way to grow or start your local digital marketing agency. The mastermind is a place to be. On top of everything else you get in there, you get closer access to us, answer questions. You can ask stuff, Bradley, Marco, me, Hernan, Chris, whatever you need, and we'll get back to you. You can find out more about that as long as, in addition to all the awesome stuff you get at mastermind.semanticmastery.com. And then for everybody, if you're looking for done-for-you services done to the highest standards, go to mgyb.co. Actually, we've got a sale going on right now. We got a really short-term sale. We extended it a little bit this time. There's a little bit of confusion that we're working with the new system. So you can still save 25% off on RYS Drive Stacks. And I'm going to put all that information on the page. You got 24 hours, though. to take advantage of that. And Marco, I think there's some more stuff coming out pretty quick, isn't there, that people are going to be able to get their hands on? Perhaps.
Maybe. I don't know. We were saying that there was like 4 more services being added. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we got link building, which I believe will be out by the end of this week. If we push it, hopefully things get done there. And then the mastermind members, right, Bradley? Are the mastermind members going to get to test something first? Is that public knowledge, or are we keeping quiet on that?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it. We're actually going to be launching the off-page GMB SEO service. So essentially, our team will build all of the off-page assets that we teach on the GMB local lease pro method, essentially. And we're going to be obviously launching that to the mastermind first. We always do, and making sure that we, get the delivery and fulfillment and everything worked out well. And then we'll launch it publicly. So it'll be several weeks before you guys can see it, unless you're in the mastermind, which in that case, it's very likely that it'll be available next week.
Outstanding. Well, we'll put that stuff on the page for people who are here live, especially so you can go take advantage of the RYS sale, grab the battle plan, or join the mastermind. And while you're at it, hit up the YouTube channel, or if you're watching the replay, go ahead and click subscribe. And if you come across our clips, we've got tons of clips answering questions, webinars, all sorts of stuff. If you find one that would be helpful to someone if it's going to solve their problem, if it's going to help them on the right path, please forward it over to them. You don't got to tell them to subscribe. We just help them out, help bring them into, let them know about Semantic Mastery and how we can help them and get them to the Hump Day Hangouts here. We love getting questions from people and helping people out. And if we can't ever answer the question, we're just going to point you in the right direction. So kind of pay it forward, and please share any of the clips or the videos you find helpful. With that said, I think that's about it, you guys. Should we dive into it?
I'm ready.
Let's do
Any
it.
objections? Speak or forever hold your peace type stuff.
Let's do it.
All right. All right, let me grab the screen. Wrong button. Hold on. It's like it's my first time. All right. I'm going to jump in. Not a lot of questions, so you guys better get to asking, or we're going to start singing show tunes and shit. I don't think you want that. All right, so Alex is up. I kind of replied to him even 6 days ago, because it's funny when we close down the Hump Day Hangouts and then like an hour later we get more questions, I feel obligated to answer them because it's like otherwise you got to wait. That person's got to wait 7 days. So don't get in the habit of posting on the the day of the hangout after the hangout's over, because I'm not always going to be able to answer them. Anyways, that said, Alex had a pretty good question, guys. So I'm going to kind of run through this. He says, hey guys, I have a branded lead gen WordPress property. He's calling it XYZ company for this example. I have made the mistake to not use a calling center, and the confusion happening 8 to 10 times is insane. The contractor has an answering service as well, which of course only says their own name when the phone rings. The caller might ask 3 to 4 times, is this XYZ company? And they reply, no, you made a mistake. We are ABC. The problem is, even if I solve the problem with the calling center, my client, the contractor, still has a problem with the confusion that occurs when they arrive at the job site and they see something different than the website. Or even when he calls back, mentions his company, and then the question arises, why is it different, etc. Playing the game that he is indeed XYZ company while he owns another big company and lying to his clients is not viable. Yeah, you never, ever, ever recommend that you mislead anybody, or that your client or your service provider, in this case, misleads anybody. Why would you encourage? You don't encourage, and that's what he's saying. It's not viable. So that's not what Alex is doing, but I'm telling everybody else, don't ever do that, right? You don't ever want to try to mislead people or have your or ask anybody to mislead people, which would be your contractor in this case. Would you recommend to use their name inside the website as partners? Just give a hint to who is going to be on the phone when the contractor calls back, and of course, to know who is going to come to the job. And so you can see I replied, and never attempt to mislead the caller or ask the call center or contractor to mislead. What you can do is have your call center, if you have one, answer with ABC, formerly XYZ. So in other words, you can say, or another version of that is XYZ is under new management by ABC, or you could say, thank you for calling XYZ, part of the, excuse me, thank you for calling ABC, which would be the company, the actual contractor that's going to go to the job, and say part of the XYZ marketing group or something like that. Does that make sense? Here's the thing, guys. When I first got started in this business, that is exactly the issue that I ran into. Was I would have my generic branded websites, and in Google Maps listings at the time, because I would do both. And for example, I would always just use the city name plus tree service. So let's just use Culpeper Tree Service as an example. The listing would show and the website would show Culpeper Tree Service, but then whatever the company's name was that would actually go show up at the, I would send them the lead information, but they would go show up at the house, because I never sent the calls directly to the contractor. I would have them go to a call center. Like, I learned that really early on. And so I always had a call center set up, but the call center would answer like Culpeper Tree Service, how may I help you? They would take the lead information and send it out to the contractor. The tree service contractor would then show up at the job, but their truck and their lettering and their shirts, everything would have completely different branding. And that would cause confusion. And I remember contractors calling me and asking me, well, what do I do? And at the time, I didn't really have a good answer. But I learned over time, kind of rather quickly, that the best thing to do is just either rebrand the site essentially for them, which you can do if you have a decent relationship with the contractor. And with the Google My Business profile or a Maps listing, what you can do is, if you're worried about actually rebranding or renaming it, which I wouldn't be if you have a good relationship, but it can cause a bit of a pain in the ass if you decide that you have to replace the contractor with somebody else. But what you can do is actually change the logo image to the contractor's logo, and the like the main banner, the main profile, not just the profile image, but the like the header banner, excuse me, which could also be the image on the GMB website if you're just using GMB assets. And then on the website itself, I would always rebrand the website for the contractor, so that I wouldn't have to update my NAP essentially, but I would still have the contractor's information on there. But with the call center, what I would do is I would end up have the call center say, this is Joe's Tree Service, formerly Culpeper Tree Service, or part of the Culpeper Tree Service marketing group, or something like that, right? So that it would be very clear to the caller right off the bat. If the caller would say, well, oh, I thought I was calling Culpeper Tree Service. Oh yeah, that I would tell the contractor when they'd say, well, I thought I'd call Culpeper Tree Service. I would tell the contractor to tell them, hey, it's a marketing website that we use for generating leads, and it hadn't been rebranded to our name yet. And that way you're not misleading anybody. They're telling the truth. And so again, if you're using a call center, or in this case, he says that he should be, which I totally agree. I've said that many, many times, guys. Your best bet is to use a call center, period. It gives you a lot more control. It's more of an exclusive service that way. There's a lot of benefits to using a call center. But that's what I do. So, for example, I just had to fire a handyman for some assets that I had built for him. But that's what, we would say, thank you for calling Home Pros or whatever. Now under new management by, and then we'd mention the new handyman's name, excuse me. And so it was very clear to the caller that what they called online was still the correct from the number that they called online. They went online, did a search, they found a company, they called that company, and now that company is either under new management or part of a marketing group or something like that. Does that make sense? It's a very simple way to make it clear to the caller that they are indeed getting their phone is being answered by the person that's going to come out and provide them with an estimate or service, provide them with the service. Does that make sense? So that's essentially what I told him, is just to do that. If you have a longer term relationship with a particular contractor that is proven, or a service provider, doesn't have to be a contractor, right? But has proven to be a good partnership, because that's the way I look at these when I deal with service providers, then I don't mind even setting up new assets under that brand. I still control them. I don't give them access to it, but I don't mind setting them up under their brand. It's going to be my phone numbers, my web assets, everything, so that in the event that it goes south, then I can always go in and update all that stuff. So I don't mind actually going in and setting them up branded for the contractor right off the bat, as long as I've already established a good relationship. You guys, it's critically important, guys, that to deal with service providers when you're selling leads that you can build a longer term relationship with, because you're going to have a much better business. It's going to be more stable, and you're going to have a much better time just managing it, right? It'll be easier to manage. So that's why I recommend, I've said that over and over and over again. I even said it in the training. If you're starting out, you're going to have to establish that relationship first. And this is the workaround until you have established that right relationship. Once you have established that relationship, then don't be afraid to rebrand for that particular service provider. It just makes everything easier for you to manage going forward, as well as, you know, it will make your service provider happier too, because it'll be their name out there on the web until and unless they do something stupid and you have to go rebrand it again. But since you maintain control of the assets, that shouldn't be an issue, right? It's not something you want to do, by the way, is switch service providers often, guys. It's a pain in the ass. Don't do that, because it only makes it harder on you. So that's why I said it's important to try to find. Now, initially, like I said, you might have to sift through you know, several pieces of garbage to find a good one. And that happens. Like I just mentioned, I had to fire a handyman that I built some assets for because he turned out to be a piece of garbage, literally. Okay. But it happens. It happens from time to time. And that's why I had set up his original handyman service provider maps listing under his name, but all the other ones that I had set up in, you know, in the adjacent areas were all branded under a generic brand name. And it was for a reason. Because I said to him, I'm not going to brand these for you until we've established a good relationship. And guess what? Within 6 weeks, I realized that he was a piece of shit. And so since I set up his original branded account and didn't give him access to it, I literally shut his branded account down. It's gone. Like it's gone. You can't even pull it up in Maps anymore. But I kept all the generic ones that I had set up. And they were all still under the generic name because he hadn't proven himself to me yet, which was great for me because I didn't have to go in and try to rebrand them again within 6 weeks. Does that make sense? So again, guys, there are ways to deal with this, and that's a great way. And that's part of the reason why I prefer using a call center. There's just a number of benefits for using a call center, guys. All right. It was a good question though, Alex. Ken Roberts said, is bulkpva.com still a viable source for PVA accounts? You know, I told you this, Ken, because I know you asked this in Syndication Academy, I think it is, Facebook group, and I answered you there, but I'll answer it for everybody else's benefit. I've had mixed results the last couple times. I've purchased accounts from him, as well as any provider for that matter. It's hard to find good email accounts now because if they're not set up properly, then they will get triggered or flagged very, very easily, no matter what you do with them. And that's one of the issues we've run into. We've talked about, you know, internally, we've talked about providing that as a service ourselves because we have VAs that actually create the accounts manually and phone verify them and all that for like syndication networks, for example. But it really is kind of a pain in the ass, and it would be hard to be profitable, especially if people are ordering a ton of accounts. And that's not something that we want to focus on. So that's, you know, we're having the same trouble is like when I need a set of accounts, it's difficult for me to get them as well. So you're not alone in that, Ken. I would say use it at your own risk. You know, I can't speak for them except that I have had mixed results with every provider that I've tried in the last, you know, several months. It's been like that for months actually. So anybody want to comment on any of these? Okay, I'm going to keep moving then. Okay, so Ken is up again. He says, if I'm creating a service-based GMB where they only go to the customer, no store, does it still make sense to create My Maps? How does Google view My Maps for service businesses? Example, if I'm a plumber, excuse me, could I create a My Maps going from my business to a customer's address? Yeah, you can, but here's the thing. If it's a service area business and you don't have a storefront, then you're not going to, and you don't, in your GMB, for example, you're not displaying your physical location, which you shouldn't be for a service area business. That's against Google's terms of service for that, unless people also come to the business. Pardon me, guys. I have to stand by for a minute. I need to mute that shit before I get on Hump Day Hangouts. All right, let me grab the screen again. So Ken, as I was saying, what you do is just grab the city center. So type in the name of the city that or zip code or whatever that your business is listed in, like the physical location. And then you actually just create the driving directions from the city center to the areas that you want to target, for example. And again, that's something that, like, you know, you can do that for creating geo posts and that kind of stuff for GMB, or excuse me, service area businesses, right? So you don't want to reveal, especially if you're using a spammed maps listing. You don't want to use the actual physical address. So you don't want to cause that as the starting point, or publish that as the starting point for a My Map. What you do is just wherever that physical location is of that map listing, you take that zip code, Just enter it into Google. It'll give you the map pin is what it deems as city center, right? And so you just grab that coordinate and start it from there. That's what you would drive. You'd have driving directions from that point out to the target area that you want to optimize for. Does that make sense? So there is a benefit to that. I've actually used that method to get maps listings that had pigeon filters applied lifted. So it's a good strategy. I'm going to keep moving. John says, I have a legitimate GMB for my own bit. I'm sorry, somebody going to jump in? Okay, I thought I heard somebody. I have a legitimate GMB business for my own business. If I got an RYS Drive Stack, should it be built on the legitimate associated Google account or a separate persona account? I answered you just a few moments ago, John. We will build it on the persona account because we will never ask you for access to your Google account. There's many reasons why we won't do that. So we will build it under a persona-based account. But once we deliver it to you, you can always transfer ownership to whatever Google account you want. Okay?
I wouldn't even transfer ownership.
I wouldn't either.
Just make it a manager. Make your legitimate GMB and whatever Gmail account you're using for that. Go in. It's all explained in the email that you get with your RYS Drive Stack.
Yeah.
It's all in there. What you need to do with this, with the account at all as the owner. You never go back in there again as the owner, but as the manager. And then you can do whatever you want as the manager.
There you go. As a manager, or like for Drive Stack specifically, just proper editing permissions, right? You would keep the persona account as the owner of the documents, the folders and files and such.
Yep.
But you would add your main business account as with editing permissions. Alex says, what should anyone be aware of when rebranding a site? How can you prevent losing rankings? Well, here's the thing. If you're just rebranding the images, so if you're saying a site, so I'm not sure if you mean a GMB or if you mean a website. If it's a website, it shouldn't hurt anything if you're just changing the branding on it. 'Cause typically I build the websites for, keyword optimized, not brand optimized, right? Obviously branding is a component of it, but it's more about keyword optimization. When it comes to a GMB, like I said, if you're worried about, I don't build citations, guys, until for GMB sites, listings, locations, until I have a secured service provider in place. And when I say secured, I mean one that I expect to have a long-term relationship with. I don't build citations for those until then, because that's part of the problem. If you build a bunch of citations under a generic brand, and then you do rebrand it for a service provider, now you've got NAP inconsistencies. That's why I don't do that. I use all the other on-page and off-page methods that I can to get results. First, find a service provider. Then once I've established a good relationship, then I will rebrand, and at that point potentially start building citations. But if I've already got results, why do I need to build citations? Does that make sense? Now, again, I've got certain service providers that I have lead gen relationship with, or engagement with, I can say, that I go out and build the assets under their brand right off the bat. And I'll build citations to them because some of these guys I've had relationships with for years. They're not going anywhere. So there's really no reason for me not to just build them for them, immediately branded for them, and start building citations right off the bat. And that's why I'm telling you guys, it's better to build that type of a relationship if you can. There are good contractors, but service providers, I deal mainly with contractors. There are good ones out there. You have to sift through several of them to find them, but there are good ones out there that will understand the relationship that you're presenting to them, like the offer, right? And those are the best ones, because then once you have somebody that says that they want to continue to get more leads from more areas, then it makes it a lot easier to build your lead gen business, because you can build the assets under their brand right off the bat. Okay. Now, again, doesn't mean it can't go south at some point in the future. And it can cause a bit of a nightmare if you've got a bunch of citations out there. But, that's part of the business, guys. It is. So number 2, when creating mass page sites, as far as rebranding, like I said, if you've got stuff that is ranking really well, then I would just change images and such on the site. You don't have to go on and change title tags and things like that. You can change the title tag for the business name if you want, but I typically am optimized for keywords anyways, right? So you can go in and add images that have the company that you're promoting, don't put their phone numbers in the image, guys, obviously, but you can put their logos, banners that display their name, that kind of stuff, right? People aren't going to, well, maybe some people, but very rarely are people going to go to a site that's branded for the company that you're promoting, right, that you're sending leads to, that has the company's logo on the site, that has a banner that talks about the company's name, and they're going to go to another browser tab and then go search the company and then call the company direct. It's very rare that people are going to do that, because people are typically, they just want to call to get this, you know, a quote or a service or whatever, right? So next, when creating mass page sites, and the initial content is unique but copied 300 times with the change in suburbs, is it considered spam? Absolutely, that's spam. There's no question that's spam. How can you do it safely? Well, I mean, you really can't. I mean, you can get away with it, but it's spam. Just be aware of that. You know, we all do it. I mean, like, I don't do mass page sites anymore. I did years ago, but that's a churn and burn strategy. I always expected them to get slapped, and more often than not, they did. And so I didn't like that, because there's a lot of work that you'd have to set up. And then, you know, I don't like rework. I like trying to build longer term assets. And so again, I mean, it is spam though. Just make no mistake. Let's be really clear about that. How can you do it safely? Well, there are things that you can do. I'm not going to be able to give you the best advice on that, because I don't like doing those kind of sites. I would consider, you know, again, there are other people out there, other groups that do a ton of that kind of stuff, mass page stuff, that can give you much better advice than I can. Does anybody want to comment on that?
No, I just had an off-topic report. Still, Facebook is down. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for that update, Hernan.
No problem.
Last part of that is, when indexing so many pages from Search Console, is it dangerous to get slapped? Yeah, I mean, yes, but again, what I found, like, years ago when I was doing stuff with Lead Gadget, and what they called the ATM, that was like this industrial strength mass page builder. It was odd, but it was crazy. Like, we would set, you know, we would build a site with 30,000 pages, a WordPress site with 30,000 pages. And we would add maybe, let's say, 6 tags per page, which would then create 180,000 tag pages. So the site would be 210,000 pages, right? Because we would create 30,000 posts essentially that would have 6 tags per post. So, and again, think about that, guys. That 210,000 pages. And what was interesting was, and again, very similar to what you're talking about, like, I would use spun content anyways, even though sometimes they said not to. I would still use spun content. But what was interesting was the tag pages would index like crazy. And you'd end up checking, like, a lot of the posts, the original posts wouldn't index, but the tag pages would index. And it was crazy to watch a site go from, you know, a couple hundred pages indexed to a few thousand, to a few, to several, you know, tens of thousands, and then well into the 100,000 mark. And it was crazy to see that, because they were essentially spam sites. But it's almost as if those big types of sites played like within different rules. Like, they have it for, I'm not sure why that was, but they seemed to index anyways. And I mean, for a period of time. I don't know anymore, guys, because I haven't done any of that stuff in at least 2 years now. But back when I was doing it, it was crazy to watch how many of those pages would index. It was nuts. But again, if a lot of times we would recommend not, and I'm prefacing all this with, I haven't done this in 2 years at least, but I tested adding it to Search Console, and I found that it wasn't necessary to do so. You could add like a sitemap. That's all I would do if you were going to do it, was add a sitemap. You know, you first have to verify the site, but then you can just add the sitemaps. But again, that's you're giving direct access to Google at that point to a spam site. So I'm not sure that I'd want to do that. And if you were going to do that, then I would recommend that you only do it through persona-based Google accounts, like additional Google accounts that you set up. Certainly not through your own main account or any account that that has any value. Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to keep moving. Alina, I see you asking the same question that many other people have asked. And guys, I've just got to be real clear about this. This is not our software. It never was. Chad Kimball's Easy Local Cache software. It was awesome that we've been able to use it for 6 months. It was a free software. You know, again, it's not our software. We don't support it. We cannot support it. It's his software. And I can understand why he has changed it. And I know what you're saying. I pulled it up today to verify it. This is the Easy Local Cache software, guys, that we've been using for 6 months. And he says, this version of the Easy Local Cache software has been discontinued. It is no longer returning accurate results. Look, guys, I understand why he's done this. He wants to push people into his email list so that he can market his maps products to you. I get it, guys. It makes perfect sense. It wasn't our software to begin with. Okay, so I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you right now. We don't have a solution for that. It might be something that we can develop. We don't have it on the books to develop at the moment. So it says email here for more information about the newest version of the software. I know when you click that button, all it does is it opens up your email service provider and it goes directly to this email address. And if you've emailed him and he hasn't replied, I'm not sure what else to tell you, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately, that's like standard practice not to answer that email, because I know quite a few people that have sent in. They've used the recommendation email here, and it's probably a catch-all.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get a response. So if he wanted people in his email list and people are going into his email list, he should have had an autoresponder at the very least. So lesson to learn here, guys: set up your email marketing correctly, or else you're going to lose a whole lot of people from your email list to start with.
Yeah, and so in the meantime, unfortunately, I don't have a solution for it. Has anybody? I have not been running this software recently, guys, because honestly, I've been working more on the monetization part of it, the prospecting process and all that, to monetize existing assets. And not only that, but I haven't been buying and securing new assets recently because we've still got a lot that we're working on that have already been secured. So I haven't tested it to see, is it really not returning good results, or is that just a bogus warning message? I don't know. Maybe somebody can confirm. I don't know. I haven't tested it. It's been several weeks since I've run this software, period. So again, I'm not trying to, Elena, I just have to be very clear. It was never our software to begin with. We cannot support the software. It's not ours. It's not our right or even our responsibility to support it. It was great that we got to use it for 6 months as we did for free. I knew at some point that he was, if Chad was smart, and he's a smart dude, that he should have put it behind some sort of like a membership area or something like that. But he offered it for free as a lead gen tool, like to build his own email list. Because originally, and that's why every time I shared the link to the software, it was always to the landing page where he prompted you to opt in. Because I wanted that. Like, I wouldn't just share the software download link, and that's why I didn't. It would not in none of the courses that I share the direct software download link, because that's would have been unethical of us to do that, right? I made it perfectly clear that you should opt in to Chad Kimball's list if you're going to use his software. And so again, I completely understand why he's done this. There's no loss. I don't resent him for that. Is my point. It kind of sucks right now because we don't have a solution, but maybe we'll come up with one. It's just not going to be today or tomorrow. I can tell you that. So sorry to tell you that, by the way. Mobile Local Biz says image optimization in video to use underscore or hyphen to separate keywords and titles when the image is saved, and in the background optimization and image details. Should underscore or hyphens be used or at all, or just spaces between words regards to SEO? I've always just used spaces. I don't know if there's really any difference between any of that now, because almost all web browsers and everything understands spaces. I remember years ago, a lot of the times you'd want to use hyphens and stuff like that. But I mean, we're in 2019 now. I don't think that matters at all. Marco, do you have any definitive answer for that?
No, not for that, because I just don't bother.
Yeah. You just put spaces?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I mean, I don't know, because most of the stuff I don't really do anymore. I just tell people this is what you need to do. Right? I tell people that I have working for me, this is what you need to do. So I don't tell them how to add the title to the image or how to upload it, because to me that's why I say it doesn't make a difference, because whatever they're doing works. Whatever we've set up to do works, and so why bother going into that granular, right? To hyphens or underscores or spaces. I haven't seen any difference. So until I do, or until we test it, I can't really say. I do know that just doing spaces works, because that's what all of our people do.
Yeah. So, and that's interesting. Just to be clear, like I said, I've always just used spaces. And my team, I do know what my team does, because I've given them the instructions and they just follow my lead. And that's always to just use spaces. And I've never had any issues with that. So yeah, I don't think it makes a difference. Remember, like I said, it's 2019. I don't think that makes any difference whatsoever now. I could be wrong though. However, let's see, that was something else. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think that makes a difference because I know that you could run all the words together and Google can still understand it. Like in other words, if it's a 4-word keyword phrase, if you run them all together, Google still recognizes what that keyword phrase is, right? It's not like gibberish at that point. Google can still recognize it. That's part of the reason exact match domains could get you in trouble, guys. If you got an exact match domain with no hyphens, which hyphens looked spammy as shit in domains anyway, so most people would never use hyphens as part of an exact match domain, but Google still understood with that keyword, that match domain was an exact match keyword. Google knows that, and that's part of the reason why the threshold for triggering a spam filter or penalty filter essentially is lower with exact match domains, because you're coming right out of the gate with an exact match keyword as your domain name, so you're telling Google, I'm an SEO. You know what I mean? And again, those were typically all just run together. I'm just thinking about this a little bit more with Olena, and because I see the next question coming up. Robert, I'll get to you in just a moment, but Jason had a very similar question, guys. Shripad, our developer for the GMB auto poster and the Briefcase, I'm not sure if auto poster has it or the post scheduler, but the Briefcase has a Google My Business rank tracker. It's part of the Briefcase service. So if you have a Briefcase subscription, I think rank tracker is part of every subscription level. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but he actually sent me a video in Slack in the channel that we communicate in to check out. He sent it to me yesterday, and I looked at it today. And he was he was showing me how he's using the rank tracker for a potential prospecting strategy. Because the rank tracker shows the way it works is you can set up within the rank tracker in the GMB Briefcase. I don't have it open, guys, to show you. Maybe I'll do a tutorial on it next week if I investigate this a little bit further. And guys, if I investigate this a little bit further and come up with a solution through the GMB Briefcase that will be able to provide us with accurate details so that we can still do location research to substitute for easy local cache software. If I find out that works, then I'll record a short training video about it, and I'll post it in all of our groups. So you guys have that even before next week, but I'll probably cover it again next week on Hump Day Hangouts too. But what I'm saying is within the GMB Briefcase, you can go in and set your keyword and your location, and then you can set up a grid for service area businesses especially, that's either a 3x3 grid or a 5x5 grid. So if it's a 3x3 grid, it will show 9 points on the map. That and I think you can set the radius of so like the distance, the service area radius essentially of the grid as well. And so if you set, like, let's say a 10-mile radius, and you've got the 3x3 grid, which would be 9 points, it would be 9 points spread out in a square around a 10-mile radius with the location that you set right in the middle. And what it does is it will go out and, again, you put your keyword in the location, and then if you set that, it will go out and show the grid, and it will show how many listings are ranked or whatever, like through the API, I think, in each one of those map pins in the grid, it will show like map pins and will show a number. And so that's one way that you could, if you do 5x5, it's 25 points, right? A 25-point map. So there's 25 pins. And so it's a lot more accurate or granular, I should say. So he was actually showing me a strategy. He was asking my opinion about using the GMB Briefcase rank tracker tool as a prospecting strategy for outreach to potential clients to show where there's opportunity or where there's deficiencies in their own marketing and things like that, and using the tool as the data driver, right? And so that's something that I'll look into a little bit, because I thought it was interesting, because I asked him specifically, like, this is pretty cool, but what is your strategy? Is it for prospecting? He replied, yes. Now, we haven't chatted since then, because it was just today that this happened. However, there may be an option, I'll dig into this, to be able to use the GMB Briefcase as a substitute for easy local cache. And if that's the case, that's even better, because we do support that tool. We can endorse that one, and you guys are already on our list, so you don't have to sign up for anything else. You would have to have a Briefcase account, though. So that's something we'll look in. Guys, can somebody remind me of that, if you don't mind? And maybe Marco, you can look at it as well. All right, we're going to keep moving it. Robert says, hey, do you guys still recommend including NAP and GMB posts frequently? Not if it's a service area business. You can do this, though, and I replied to you earlier, Robert, who's also a mastermind member. I recommend if it's service area business, you can put name, city, state, zip. Don't put the street address. If it's a service area business and you're not displaying a street address in your maps listing, don't display it or don't post it as part of your GMB post either. And you don't have to do that every time, guys, either. You can do it, vary it up. Vary it up so that, sometimes they do have it, sometimes they don't. Okay? Shit, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, going to keep on moving. Jason says, that's the same question we already answered. Kelvin says, I got the battle plan. It's organized well, but now it leaves me with more advanced questions. What would you say is the fastest and cheapest way to get a listing boosted as a way to get your foot in the door with clients? Citations, it's not citations, I'll tell you that. Citations take a while to really start taking effect because citations typically take a long time to index. Citations is more of a longer-term strategy, guys. It's not something that, again, all lead gen assets that I set up now, I don't even start publishing citations until I've got a service provider in place and I've established a good relationship that I expect or assume is going to be long-term. So citations are not even something that I do anymore as standard operating procedure unless it's for a client already or something that I'm setting up branded right off the bat, which could be maps expansion for a client or for an already existing lead gen service provider that I have a good relationship with. Does that make sense? Citations are great for longer term strategy, but it's not something I do. It's not something that's going to push a maps listing anytime soon. Okay. Post, yes. GMB post, obviously, that's the local GMB Pro method. Right off the bat there, post is a great way to start getting traction, guys. It's not necessarily to rank the maps listing as it is to get leads from the listing because it's a mobile device thing. It doesn't necessarily equate to better rankings. It can and will over time, but you can get leads from posting properly without it even pushing the rankings. That's exactly what the local GMB Pro method is all about. Okay, so posts, absolutely. That should be standard operating procedure right off the bat. Like as soon as you come out of the gate. Clicks to the GMB, yeah, click-throughs is absolutely important, guys. If you can manipulate that, and there's ways to do it, you can try automation, although a lot of the times that doesn't work very well. Also, I've talked about this many times, but you can use Google, you can use ads traffic, paid traffic to get traffic to your legitimate real traffic to the listing, and that is weighted extremely heavily. And there's ways to do it. We did a training on it for YouTube, how to do it with YouTube ads. That was an order bump on the battle plan. So if you didn't get it and you still want it, I don't know if we can make that available, but that's one of the ways that you can actually use YouTube ads to drive traffic directly to a GMB listing. And that is heavily weighted traffic because Google knows who those users are. It knows that if you can find an in-market audience, that they're in market for those services, and you can set your geographic targeting so that it's only local people actually clicking through. They're genuine Google users with a valid interest in what you have to offer. So it's not just about manipulating the rankings by sending targeted traffic. It's also about potentially generating leads. And I'm saying YouTube, guys, because you could use AdWords, Google Ads, like search traffic, but that's damned expensive. YouTube ads is incredibly inexpensive. I mean, literally, it's pennies per view on the video. And if you have your targeting right and a compelling message in the video, you can get clicks for tens of cents, right? Because remember, you might take you 6 or 8 or 10 clicks or 15 clicks, views, 8 or 10 or 15 views to get one click. And if you're paying 5 or 6 cents per view, and it takes you 12 views to get one click, that's 60 cents per click. That's still a hell of a lot better than paying $6 per click or 16 or 26 or 30. You see what I'm saying? So my point is a YouTube ad is a great way to drive traffic. Also, guys, display ads. Google display ads, the display ad platform is so much better than it used to be. It's so much easier to set up a display ad campaign now because all you have to do is have images and lines of text. And you can set up display ad campaigns and get clicks. I start off for contractors, guys. I'll set up display campaigns for $1.50 per click is my max cost per click bid, right? And then once I get some data that comes in, typically they run somewhere between, and for most contractors, again, I deal almost exclusively with contractors, but the average cost per click usually runs somewhere between 85 cents to $1.15. So what I do is I always start off the campaigns at $1.50 max cost per click bid. Then once I have some data coming into the account, then I'll go in and start manually adjusting the max cost per click bid down to what around the threshold of what the average cost per click data shows me. And then once I have some more data come in, I actually do encourage using Google's automated bidding strategies. And Google will tell you right in the ads platform, it'll give you recommendations. 2 years ago, I would have said you're nuts if you use Google's automated bidding strategy because they'll burn through your money. I'm a believer now. The Google, every time I go in, not every time, but what I'll do is I'll go in and implement one of Google's recommendations to an automated bidding strategy. It could be maximum conversions, target CPA. There's several of them. I'll let Google make the recommendation. I always manage the campaign manually to begin with until there's enough data in there. And then I will start using or start implementing or applying some of Google's recommendations, which are typically automated bidding strategies. And then I'll make a note of when I applied that particular recommendation. And then I'll go back in a week or 2 weeks, depending on the traffic volume, and see what, compare what the results were from my manual campaign management versus the automated campaign management. And if Google's is better, I leave it, implement it, right? If my campaign management was better, more cost effective, then I will switch it back to manual CPC or manual management, excuse me. Does that make sense? And again, guys, Google Display Network is a fantastic way to get targeted, geo-targeted traffic from people that are from a relevant audience to click through to your assets, which can be a GMB, guys. You can put a GMB business site URL in there. Does that make sense? Or even a map URL. So again, if you want more training on that, we had it was part of an order bump. I don't know if it's still available, but that was I think it was called the Google Ads Mastery or some shit like that, as part of the battle plan funnel. So as far as on-page SEO, well, you want to do that anyways, but one of the best things, Kelvin, is press releases. It's not as easy with press releases as it was a year and a half ago. Like year and a half ago, I could get oftentimes within 2 press releases, I could push a maps listing into the 3-pack. It seems that as with everything in SEO, once the cat is out of the bag and it's been done enough, or by enough people, it starts to become less effective. I'm not saying press releases are not effective for pushing maps assets into the 3-pack. They are, but it requires a little bit more persistence, more of them. PR stacking really helps. And also if you can diversify your distribution networks. So in other words, don't use the same distribution network 18 times, right? Like it does help if you have some diversity. Okay. And then like we teach in Local PR Pro about PR stacking. There's a very specific way. It's random, but in a specific way that you can get better results from your press releases. And that's taught in Local PR Pro. But I think press releases on page, you name several of them. Posts, which should be standard operating procedure. Clicks to GMB, yes. I don't recommend trying automated strategies, guys. You can play with that if you want. But I'm telling you guys, you could and very inexpensively, you can buy traffic from YouTube. For a little bit more money, you can buy traffic from the display network. And Google knows that audience, guys. It knows who those people are. It knows that they have an interest in what you're sending them to, right? Because you set all that up in your targeting. So that is heavily weighted traffic. If you send spam traffic or automated traffic or non-relevant traffic, it can give you a boost. But what might take 300 click-throughs from non-relevant traffic might only take 30 click-throughs from relevant traffic to achieve the same results, right? And the point with relevant traffic is that traffic has a very good chance, or at least is likely, to actually convert into a lead anyways because it's relevant traffic to begin with, whereas non-relevant traffic is strictly an SEO tactic. Does that make sense? So hopefully that was helpful. Keep on moving. Ted says, WordPress question. Client site is creating spammy blog posts. Client site is creating, I changed the password, set up 2FA. What is 2FA? I'm not sure what that means. And reinstalled the core WordPress via the admin dashboard, but it's still happening. What steps would you take? Action. Better hosting sounds hacked. Yeah, it does. It sounds like it's hacked. If the hacker's in your actual server, which it sounds like he likely is, or they are likely in your server, I've had that happen in the past. It doesn't matter how many times you delete the site and reinstall it. Like if they can take over it. So I would actually highly recommend switching to a better host. especially if you're on a budget host, guys, you know, don't try to save money on hosting. We've said that for years, because shitty hosting will make it hard to rank sites anyways. Like, I'm not kidding, because you're associated with like a bad neighborhood. You're guilty by association. Like if your IP or your WordPress site, or whether it's WordPress or not, doesn't really matter. But if your site is hosted in a bad neighborhood, so it means it's surrounded by a bunch of other shitty, spammy sites, it's going to make it very difficult. That's one of the ranking factors. There's no question. And for these kind of issues. Also, if you're on a budget host, guys, I would recommend that you do something like install something like Uptime Robot or something like that, so that you can see how often on shitty hosts your site is down. And that's a terrible ranking signal. You might not even know it because you're not probably in the site all the time. But a lot of times on those budget hosts, because it's shared bandwidth and they way overload IPs, they put way too many sites on a single IP. What happens is, if any site out there is getting a surge in traffic, or is getting, you know, spam bot, like a surge in bot traffic and things like that, it will actually slow down all of the other sites and oftentimes knock them offline, that are also hosted on that same IP. And so if you put an Uptime Robot on an inexpensive host, on a site that's hosted on an inexpensive host, you'll see that your site's going to be down often, and that's a terrible ranking signal. So spend a little bit of money, get a better host. I highly recommend, especially if you're doing client work, guys. Pass that cost off onto the client. In fact, you can actually make hosting a profit center for you if you go out and get your own VPS, like for example, we always recommend Liquid Web. Liquid Web is fantastic. You can go out and get cloud hosting or virtual private server hosting, and you can set it up to where you can host multiple sites through your hosting service, and then charge your clients what they would be paying to host on, hosting companies for their own hosting account. You just become the host to them then. Essentially, you're reselling your hosting service to them. And so that can become a profit center, right? Let's say you got 10 clients, and you sell them, you tell them it's $20 a month per hosting, or if you pay month by month, or $15 per month if you pay annually, and you collect $180 per year per client. That's $1,800 on 10 clients, guys. It doesn't cost you $1,800 for a good server at Liquid Web for the year, to only host 10 sites. I mean, that one, you get what I'm saying? So now you turn that into a profit center, and you can assure your client that you have a well-secured server that also has fantastic support. Liquid Web's got fantastic support. So hopefully that makes sense. Where's this question that I'm missing? That's probably old. Yep. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. All right, guys, we're almost out of time. I'll go through just a few more, and we'll be done. Two-factor authentication. Thanks, Walt. Appreciate that. It would be great if you could offer PBAs. Yeah, Scott, I know. We've talked about it. I don't think it's going to be something that we're going to do, though, honestly. It's a lot of work, and it wouldn't make us very much money, and it would be tough to manage. And plus, we'd have to deal with support issues, obviously, when accounts got shut down, which is invariably going to happen. So it's not something I think that we want to do. I understand your pain. Trust me, I do. But I'm not sure that we would do that. If we do, we'll certainly announce it. Calvin Lee says, asking a second question because the questions here look like, yeah, I'm curious as to why today's such a slow day. That's okay. We only got 5 minutes left anyway, so we appreciate the additional question, Kelvin. He says, how important is on-page SEO for client GMB rankings compared to backlinking strategy? What comes first? On-page. Always do on-page first. I mean, here's the thing. Right now with Google just being tight about stuff, trying to prevent us from doing stuff, and that's exactly why. Because, you know, the SEO world's been spamming GMBs for the last 6 months pretty heavily. It's not just us, but there's certainly been a lot of that going around. So I would recommend, like, if it's an established company that has had a GMB for a period of time, I wouldn't worry about it because I haven't had any issues with that whatsoever. But if it's a brand new GMB listing, I would recommend that you do on-page stuff in stages, slowly, instead of going in one fell swoop and optimizing everything like from top to bottom. You know what I mean? Which is what we taught because it was working really well. But what I'm saying is if it's a brand new GMB listing, I would recommend that you go in and just do, you know, one thing at a time and give it a day or two in between significant on-page changes or edits. Okay. Only because, like I said, also you would probably want to log in through a manager account, not the primary owner account, to do that. If you are an established, agency, if you provide client services and you typically are a manager to multiple other clients, then use your main Google account if that's how you access other people's GMBs through a manager account. If it's your profile, like it is with me, I've got two. My main account, which is, my own personal name essentially, and then I have my G Suite account that is for my company, my agency. And so I typically have my clients add both names as managers to their GMBs so that I can, depending on which account I'm logged into, I can still access and make edits and changes and such. But I've been doing this stuff for a long time. So it's not odd, or it doesn't look suspicious for me to have access to clients' accounts and make changes, because it's, Google, I'm sure, understands what I do. You know what I mean? So that's completely normal. But what's not normal is to log in through a primary owner account for a new listing and make and optimize it soup to nuts, like top to bottom. You know what I mean? That it could potentially cause a suspension right now. If it's an established company, though, like in other words, if the GMB has been published online for a period of time, the company has authority as a validated entity in the real business world, then I wouldn't worry about it. I would still access through a manager account, because I don't like to log into my clients' accounts anyways. So I would still recommend that you go through a manager account and then make the changes. But again, it depends on the length. But GMB on-page stuff is certainly important, guys. Anything that you can do on-page is going to make your off-page efforts more effective, right? Or you'll get better results with less off-page work. That's kind of the point. So we've always recommended starting with on-page stuff. By the way, if your client does have a main website that is attached as the primary website for the GMB, guys, on-page SEO for the client's website is critically important. And there's no better course out there for on-page SEO than Jeffrey Smith's SEO Bootcamp, which we should probably drop a link for that, because if you try to buy it on his public link, it's going to cost you $1,000. If you buy it from us, it'll cost you $500. And it is hands down the best on-page SEO course I've ever seen. Jeffrey Smith ranks websites, guys, like with 0 backlinks. Like he outranks authority sites with 0 backlinks because of the way that he creates on-page, the way he does on-page SEO. It's absolutely incredible. Never seen anybody better in the business. That is the truth too, by the way. So anyways, we're about out of time. Yeah, that code is working now, by the way, guys. Thanks, Walt, again for that. Grant says, when I tried the Briefcase rank tracker in the past, I didn't see where competitors' optimization information would be collected, such as, yeah, that might be an update, Grant. Again, Shreep had just sent me the video yesterday and said, what do you think about this? I'd appreciate your input. And he was showing me what he was using as a potential prospecting strategy. And it did have a lot of additional stuff that wasn't there a couple of months ago when I started testing it. Remember, Grant, we're in the beta tester Slack group. So a lot of these features are still being developed out. So it might be that it's just new data. And that's why he sent it to me to ask me my opinion on it. So again, I will look into that a little bit further, guys. If it's something that we can use as in fact, even if it's not able to do what we want it to do for location research yet, that's something we can certainly request to have done. And I'm sure Shripad can work that out for us. So again, guys, just give us a little bit of time. We'll work out a solution for that, I'm sure. All right. SEO Bootcamp, look at Adam on the draw. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. It's 5 o'clock. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We don't have a mastermind webinar this week, so I guess we'll just see you all next week. Any parting questions or words, guys?
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, have a good day. I lost my train of thought, so have an awesome day.
All right, guys. See everybody later. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.